Welcome to Season 4 of the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast, where we explore the local arts culture and community in the Lehigh Valley.
We'll be doing this through conversations with individual artists, administrators, musicians, poets, actors, and arts and cultural organizations. We'll discuss all types of mediums with the goal of enriching local arts culture.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast. I'm Ben, and this week I have the privilege of interviewing the multi-talented artist Michael B. Judkins. Michael is creating stories that reach, teach, and empower, with 10 plus years of experience in the creative industry as an independent creative director, screenwriter, writer, content creator, and mental health advocate. He believes that art can truly change lives. He holds an Associate of Science in Journalism, a Bachelor of Science in Human Services, and a Master of Science in Mental Health Counseling. Michael was signed to AOIS 21 Media Publishing House, which produced his second poetry collection titled Interlude to Sentimental Me. Later on, he turned that poetry into a stage play with 2 sold-out nights in Bethlehem, PA.
Michael, welcome to the episode.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
I'm super excited. We have not had a ton of people in the world of film and the world of poetry join our show before, and you are a very multifaceted artist yourself, and I am super excited to dive in.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Woo!
So, for those listening, how would you describe yourself as an artist? Because there are so many things, like even just doing a basic Google search for your name, there are so many things that pop up, so many exciting pieces, and I'd love to hear from you a little bit more about that.
Most people would categorize me as a very extroverted type of person, but believe it or not, I'm very introverted with an extrovert personality, right? So I think what inspires me as an artist is always feeling emotional. And always having a high sensitivity to emotions and understanding feelings and concepts. And that helps me find the right words to express what I want to say.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's that best way to describe any type of artistry I do.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I listened to a couple of the past interviews that you did, and you talked about growing up in the Bronx,
Yes.
and that you started as a club promoter.
Yes, I did.
And so I'd love to hear kind of about how the world of music and how maybe being in that from such a young age like morphed and shaped and got into your head as to inspiring you to want to express yourself in different ways.
I think it was a great foundation, honestly. Music always been a big part of my life. So growing up, always been music around, musical family. So always been music playing around me. And then when I became a teenager and becoming a young adult, going into music was really the ideal career at the time for me.
Yeah.
In the sense of I was involved in learning the aspect of promotions and advertising.
Yeah.
And on a level in a time when street promotions and street teams, this is prior to Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. This is when you actually have to physically give somebody a flyer in the hand to come to your event and creating guest lists. So that actually gave me a lot of experience talking to promoters, talking to different people in the community, selling a product, really, right? Because that was our main focus. So I think that experience helped me in the sense of understanding what it is to talk to a consumer about a product from passion.
So tell me, from club promoter to now, how did you get here?
A lot of things got me to where I'm at today, and a lot of things got me to where I started at. So in high school, my love of writing first started in high school. So I remember when I was in my social studies class, I finished an exam early. And at that time, the school I was in, Bronxboro High School, we had the privilege of calling our teachers by their first name. They was okay with that.
Yeah.
So my teacher Ann at the time, I was done. So I was kind of doodling on the back of a paper of the quiz. And when I was handing up the paper, I just handed up thinking nothing, left the class, went about my day. When I came back the next day, she gave me it was like an A++ or something like that. And I'm sitting up there like, okay, I probably thought I got a B. I didn't put too much effort into that one. It was kind of like, oh, we got a quiz today. So I kind of knew the material. Social studies was one of my favorite studies. So I kind of understood the material. And on the paper she wrote, I loved what you wrote in the back of this, keep writing. And I turned the paper around because I didn't even realize what I wrote in the back, honestly. And it was, to me, even though from the 11th grade, understanding what poetry was, seen it, heard it, I didn't know I had the talent to write emotionally. So when I read her feedback and I read it, I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I do have a knack for this. So that actually started my journey to go into my associate's program in journalism. So
cool.
I have my associates in journalism with a focus of radio and TV. So that was my first degree. So my first background into understanding just the business of media was actually learning the business of news and learning the business of photojournalism and taking news writing classes and photography classes and getting exposed that way in my journalism program. And that led me into getting into radio and kind of getting an idea of radio, and then opened the eyes creatively to working at the Fresh Air Fund that summer as a creative instructor and, you know, creating stuff. And then it just went from there. So I always had the love for music. Music always been around. I used to manage a couple of artists when I was between 18 to 20, and then at the same time club promoting, and then went to school, got the degree. So it was the intertwining of me understanding I want to do creative arts, but I understand that I want to also do mental health. So how can I work that?
Yeah, that
So it
makes
was
sense.
a little bit of both of figuring that out for myself. But as an artist, I've always been an artist, I would say. So my background, I would say, definitely started from understanding, or at least understanding the concept of English, right, and literature, having some form of fascination with it in order for me to pursue journalism and kind of getting an idea of media and really how that works, and which was very helpful to me and still to today. And then going on and finishing my degrees in mental health. So that kind of fostered that aspect. And I never call myself, and this is probably a point of me because I don't consider it, I never call myself expert, because I'm totally not. I'm still a student, you know, and I appreciate still learning and fostering from different people from all walks of life and all ages. So I never want to consider myself an expert in something. As of yet, I want to consider myself as a student learner still.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've talked in almost every public media appearance you've had about being such a strong mental health advocate.
Yeah.
And reading through a couple of your poetry collections and watching through some of your short films and such, I really saw that poetry was where that subject matter came across like at the forefront.
Yeah.
Being someone that works in so many different mediums, what about the medium of poetry draws you to want to explore themes of mental health?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that we was always told when we have a problem to journal. A lot of people was first introduced to writing by journaling. And I think that expression of just being able to be in tune with yourself helps you heal. So it has a healing it has a healing factor to it. For me, personally and professionally, it heals me. And believe it or not, it's a foundation, it's a starting point. But believe it or not, I haven't even released a poetry project in years.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a few years.
2018?
2018 probably was my last project. Yeah. And that was just more in the sense of different events happening and different other projects getting in the way. And don't get me wrong, I got like two half incomplete manuscripts ready. You know, but it to me, it's always with me in everything I do, even if I'm doing film in a sense, and it's a project on the OC14 Entertainment belt. My concept is always structure. And I think what poetry helped me do is learn structure. Okay. So, which is extremely important to me. I'm a unconventional writer. I don't care. I can mix up my verbs and adverbs and then kind of make a blemish of words together, right? But then if structure's not there, people tend to have a hard time following, especially if you're looking at it, sometimes doing it in a professional sense and you're going for publication. I was assigned poet under a publishing house. So I understand, needing your stuff to be structured and understanding what the lines are, understanding what's your tone trying to be. And these are all different elements to when you think of poetry, you just think of oh, that's creative writing free. There's a whole nother side of it to where a lot of people don't realize, and that's the structure of poetry.
Yeah. How hearing you talk about that reminds me a lot of the screenwriting process as well. So how for you did exploring poetry end up leading into screenwriting?
It was time for me to tell some stories.
Okay.
So I had a progression that I wanted to do when I started putting my poetry out publicly in the world, right? So I did the introduction, and from that point, I was dabbling a little bit in poetry and may do a couple of live readings. But when I decided to do publications, I knew I wanted a couple of things, I would say. First, I had to understand what criticism was, right? Second, I had to understand what I want my writing to tell of me.
Yep.
Right? And third, what audience am I going to attract, right? And I think sometimes when we write, we don't think about these things, and that helps me in screenwriting as well too. So when I'm writing a script, I'm doing the same. I'm focusing on structure. I'm thinking creatively because sometimes I'm writing the story and the scenes in my head before I even type them.
Yeah.
So by the time I go to the computer with my outline, I'm already kind of just typing away. And I'm a firm believer in pauses. So I love to take pauses. So, and pauses for me, meaning if I'm writing any type of material, if I'm stuck on a line or a paragraph or a scene, I go pause. Like it's no marathon, right? It's no marathon to get this done. I want to pause because maybe that's something to where that maybe it's a plot twist I missed. Yeah. Maybe it's something else I need to add into it that got me stuck there. So that kind of helped. The screenwriting process kind of is, for me at least, it's the same as like when I'm writing poetry in a sense, as I visualize first, document, and then execute.
Makes sense. For those listening, the poetry collections that Michael has published are Sentimental Me and Interlude to Sentimental Me.
Yes.
When it comes to Interlude to Sentimental Me, you also took a foray into the stage. Is that right?
I did.
Tell me more about that.
So the Interlude, to me, I would say, all the projects I've done so far, and I love them all, they all have a special place, right? Like any creative. Anytime you create something, everything has a special place for you. The Interlude project to me, the poetry project to me was an emotional breakthrough of the time where I was at in my life. So I recently just got signed with AOIS 21 Media House, probably like within that past 4 to 5 months, 6 months. I started to write my second project. I was under this contract with this new company. I had a publisher now, even as an independent. And ladies and gentlemen, please, if you're a Star Wars fan like me, believe in hope. Do not give on hope if that's what you want to look for. Because how my publisher found me was from a analog that I submitted that they was looking for poems, and that's how I got discovered with them.
Wow.
And I was on the contract with them for 5 years, and we made a little money.
That's awesome.
So, so it was one of those things to where when the Interlude came out, I was working and still working in the field. I was working as a therapist, and I said creatively, I wanted to take this project to where it was. I want to show a little bit of my past. I want to show a little bit of my present. I want to talk about some people that's been around me, what's been going on in their lives. So I was living on the south side of Allentown at that time, and I totally immersed myself in the creative process for that project. I gave myself about 3 to 4 months to write it. And every time I wrote each poem, I wrote it in a theme based. So like I would sit behind my apartment complex in the woods with my dog. It would just be me and Coach. And I have my notepad. And in that woods, I wrote, fly by night witches. And I wrote this, and just looking at the sunlight. Oh, there was a couple of moments and a couple of poems in that collection to where I literally sat in my car driving from Maryland from my friend house, coming back to PA and reciting the poetry in the car based on that. So that creative process was so deep for me. Like I allowed myself to open some doors I didn't want to open.
That's beautiful.
And it came out in the poetry so much to where I literally got in contact with Rain, and I wanted an organization that supported
Wow.
sexual abuse, and any of that type to support me in the book, and they did. What I had to do, I contacted their corporate offices. I told them I am a local poet, blah blah blah. Introduced myself to the company.
Yeah.
They said forward me over a copy of the manuscript. Forward over the copy of the manuscript. They read it. The CEO, he was like, "I love it." Gave me the permission to stamp that. So if you purchase the Interlude to Sentimental Me, you open it up, you will see where it says during in view of ever survivor, blah blah blah, and that was proof. And they don't do that. And as an independent artist, I can tell you, I was so pleased, and I wasn't nitpicking at them. I wasn't harassing them. I did like literally 2 calls and an email, and I was connected. And the people that, I guess it was just the timing, because the people that connected me to the director who was running it told me straight just like that. I was like, we usually don't work with independent artists, but we're going to do this one. So like, it was one of those things to where it's like, okay, I didn't know what to say. It was just like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So it kind of lined up in a way to where it was that, and I did 2 book tours with AOIS 21 afterwards. So they took me down to Baltimore, Maryland, DC area, Virginia. So I sold a couple of books down there, did a couple of tours and that contract. And then the poetry came. I mean, the stage play came, where I said, I want to expand the story. I want to bring the story to life. And how am I going to do that? So what I did was I picked 16 of the strongest poems in that collection of 40. And I looked at those poems and I started creating characters, and I started creating the story, and I kind of immersed myself in as Mercury, which is one of my nicknames. And that's how the stage play came about. And we had 2 sold out nights in Bethlehem, great positive reviews in all the Lehigh Valley theater pages and stuff like that, to where even now I've been asked to bring that play back.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Where was that play held at?
Yeah, I actually did. I wanted to really do it in a community base, so I actually partnered with Rosemont Lutheran Church.
Oh, okay.
In Bethlehem.
Wow.
Yep. And I did both my nights there.
That's amazing.
They actually have the space in their basement, or the lower level floor, that is a full medium-sized stage.
Yeah.
Some lighting and a space. It's like a little black box theater down there. You would have never thought.
That's amazing.
With a dressing room in the back and everything.
How did you get connected with them?
Hard call. I just happened to drive by, and I was familiar with Touchstone. I was familiar with all the local places.
Sure.
I just happened to was driving by Broad Street during that time, and I looked and it said Hall for Rent. And I just was like, I like traditional stuff, but I knew that this play, for the first run, I wanted to get it into a space to where I can really that it says community.
Absolutely.
So that's how it connected for me in that sense.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage for artists to hard reach out to people like that. And that is now 2 very monumental, impactful instances in your life where doing that hard reach out really paid off big time.
Yes.
Do you have any other instances like that played into your story and getting you to where you are today?
Probably a few. I'm thinking like, what would be a most recent one? I think it's just more the sense of, sometimes it's luck. It's just happening to catch the right people at the right time, like they say. But I think sometimes it's just the more sense of how you connect with people and how you understand. I think it's understanding what you want, right? And then I think a lot of people would work better or work with most artists more once they when they're being more descriptive of what they want.
Yeah,
if
definitely.
that make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your short film Lonely Girl.
Yes.
You had the premiere for that at the AOIS Theater.
I did.
How did you guys get connected with them? How did that come about?
Hard call. You see, I knew another one would come up sooner or later. So the interesting part, and I built a great connection with the AOIS Theater now. So really cool. Robin and the staff over there is really nice. And they support a lot of independent creatives out here. So go out there and support them.
Yeah.
I want another thing. I wanted to have it into a place to where that's where we'll celebrate the cast and crew and Steel Stacks. Originally I was going to do it at the Steel Stacks. I was going to get a good deal over there, and then I just happened to be in Emmaus that Saturday, and I seen the Emmaus Theater, and I was just like, you know what, this feels right.
Yeah.
Called them up, do the email, got the pricing, got it booked, and then we started talking about, well, what else do you do? That type of conversation, and that opened the door to at least have that contact to kind of say like, hey, you know, if I have a booking or something like that, hopefully the book there, or when my features are coming in, that's coming soon.
Yeah.
You know, I can have a local theater to call home.
That's awesome.
Hopefully, right?
Yeah. I love the Emmaus Theater.
Yeah.
And we actually, so through the podcast and through the studio, we have the gallery, Steel Pixel Studios, which is a small local art gallery. And one of our first guests on the podcast, I'll give a shout out to Abby Roscoe. She did an entire collection that was based on the film Mikey and Nikki.
Okay.
Which is an Elaine May film, fantastic film. But paired with that exhibition that we did here, for the first 25 people that came, we did a small private friends and family screening of the movie at the end of that exhibition at the Emmaus Theater. We rented it out for the day, played it, had the snack stand open. It was a hoot. We had a really good time.
And it's such a comfortable theater.
It really is.
People don't even understand it. It's like right in our backyard.
Yeah.
It's such a comfortable theater. Like
sure.
if you go there, you feel the nostalgia of old theater.
Yeah.
And you get that feel. You know, like if you like the old theater style, you get that feel.
Absolutely.
So glad.
Yeah. I brought up Lonely Girl.
Yes.
And I would love to use that as a jumping off point to talk more about your filmmaking side of things.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about Lonely Girl. I know that was put into a bunch of festivals. You won some awards with that.
I did.
And it kind of helped propel you into some of the feature stuff and documentary stuff that you're doing now.
So everything is connected. So believe it or not, we're watching this show on Netflix right now called, is it Netflix? Yeah, it's called Dirt. I think it's on Netflix. And they always say everything's connected. That's why I get that word from everything's connected. But believe it or not, Lonely Girl actually started out as a title of a poem that was actually supposed to be included in the interlude to Sentimental Me when I was writing that creative process.
Yeah.
When I was in that creative process for that project. And what transpired with that, I had the title Lonely Girl, and I wanted to write a poem about that, and I got stuck. I did not know what to write, so I liked it, the title, so I kind of pushed it in my to-do pile, and I kept it on the side, and then I actually got a phone call. This was years ago, so I got a phone call from my sister, and she was blah, 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 blah. And then at the same breath, I got my phone beeps, and it's like my brother-in-law, and hold on, click, hello. And of course, they're talking about each other, not knowing I'm on the phone with both of them. So I'm like, okay, hold on, please. All right, I gotta go. All right, y'all gotta handle that. I got off the phone with them, and then I was like, I just started writing. Lonely Girl came together, but it did not come together as a poem. It came together as a song. So when I started crafting lyrics to the song, I literally started looking for a place to hone it. So I started working in Emmaus with, oh my God, what's the name of that place? It's a songwriting studio out there in Emmaus off of Main Chestnut Street.
Is that Never Again?
Oh my God. It's right by the McDonald's. Hopefully they're still there. It's the Creative Lab, I think it was. Was it the Creative Lab?
I think that sounds
something
right.
like that, I think. And I started working with one of the instructors there, and literally it was just for this one, which was supposed to have been a poem that got shelved, that automatically became into song lyrics. And then I'm started to write it with him, and we're breaking it down, breaking into notes, breaking my lyrics down, fine tuning it. He's putting it to music. We even cut a raw cut of that, A Lonely Girl, to where I was originally going to put it out as a regular single. I did not. I held it. And then the star of Lonely Girl, Tatiana Torres, amazing actress out here, I seen her at an audition out here. I was on another project as a I think I was a production manager on that project, and I was in the casting process. So I was at the auditions, and she was there, and we just got in conversation where she was just talking about typecasting and not getting a lot of roles. And from that point, I started writing Lonely Girl, the script. From the song, from the poem to the shelf, to finally getting a body of work, to putting in almost 6 months working at the Creative Lab to create one record.
Wow.
To get the track, shelve it, 2 years later, have this meeting with her, start writing the script. And I told her, I said, I have an idea. If you give me a year, I'm going to present it to you. Okay. Within a year, I had that script.
Wow.
And that's what's a short. And shorts don't take that long. But the only reason why it took me a year because of other things going on. But I wrote it, presented to her. She said she'd do it, and we went to production.
Nice.
So it literally stemmed from that progression with just the title.
Yeah.
With just the title. And that came with that. And, and for me, it has a lot of, because I know the history of it, of what led from start to finish. But again, it was one of the pieces of work I really wanted to show a strong female lead. Becoming vulnerable, then becoming upset, but then finding herself again. Yeah. So I really wanted to capture that. And I guess to me, that's what that title probably meant all along.
Makes
that I was
sense.
trying to write as a poem, but I couldn't get it out.
Yeah.
So to me, I just think this is one of those instances as a creative, one idea you thought of automatically turns into something totally else. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. You're definitely not shy about your joy when it comes to the pre-production process.
I love pre-production is one. Let's plan it. I'm one of those. I'm an organizer, so I like pre-production a lot.
Yeah. So is it the organizational portion that really draws you to pre-production?
It's the organization portion. It's looking at the page and then matching that to a talent to bring it to life. So to me, it's looking at, sometimes it's not just about, I know this actor or actress, they're great and all this stuff. Yeah, but sometimes it's really finding that right match. So to me, as somebody that writes and produces stuff, you kind of see that, like in any creative process, you kind of see like a train, like you're kind of pulling off from the station and you're going and you're seeing that process going. So to me, that's how it's kind of explained. Yeah. It's like you're on a train and you're seeing the train going, and while you're on the train, you're in still motion, but the world is still going by you, right? Still motion. So it's like me when I look at my page, I kind of already in my head kind of know which way I want to see the actor or actress, but to me, it's more about can they connect emotionally.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
On the Beyond the Break podcast, you had mentioned how key story is to pre-production and how key that is to a production at large. And so I would love to hear for yourself when in the process you get the feeling that a story is strong enough to take into production.
I think for me, this comes with, and a lot of people are like me, but this comes with having that experience working with the independent media publishing house. I'm not scared of an editor, and I'm not scared of script coverage. So to me, I might have all my structures in place, my I's with my T's and everything else. But to me, I'm not greenlighting anything until after my editor or my script consultant consults it. Because yes, you could write something and you got no spelling errors, you have no red line underneath that says no errors, and everything is great, and you could take any page to script. You can.
Sure.
People do it all the time.
Sure.
You can. There's no judgment on my part. But for me, I learned it makes better once I do all my structuralist part when I'm doing my writing and breaking it down and getting it writing. So I go to at least 3 drafts before my script consultant get it. If I'm gonna get like if I'm only going to second draft and my script consultant gets it before that means I feel it. I already got a strong story. Yeah. And I don't think I just need to tweak it. And that's usually the case. But if I have something to where it might be strong, but I'm weak in a lot of areas, that's when you go back to the drawing board and you redo it. So to me, some creators are different. Some creators don't like, the editing process or script consultants, and they write it, they stick to it, and that's it.
Sure.
To me, it's a working document, so anything is up for change. Even the day of script, even the day of set. You know, if I'm on set and something doesn't seem right, guess what? I can sit there and change that dialogue and write you a new one. You know, but if it makes sense. So to me, it's story, understanding that if you're creating the world, you know, understanding what that world is, right? Understanding that everything has a beginning, middle, and end, right? And if you lose that focus sometimes, yes, you can still have a great project, but sometimes you may lose your audience to it.
Sure.
So then, as an independent creator, one of my mentors told me a while ago, sometimes it doesn't matter how long the journey takes. It just depends on the projects you get out there for the audience that you're building. So I look at it like that. So even though I might not see where I could sit here and say like, oh, I should be further than along, I think I'm right. You know, I'm at a point to where the projects that I am putting out, the feedback that's coming back to me, regardless of, you know, movies are objective. So you like it or you don't like it, right?
Yeah.
But at least the message is coming across like, wow, I love that message on blank. So people are getting the message. So that's what brings me the joy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we have the story that's in place, and we're moving on to production, right? You're a director yourself.
Yes.
You've talked about doing production. You've had a myriad of roles on sets that you've mentioned. But at the beginning of your career, when you were a club promoter, in the past, you've talked a little bit about being on the sets of music videos.
Yes.
Now, in line with that, you said mentally you weren't really thinking about that world.
Yeah.
But reflecting back on that now, right? What would you say is something that you observed or learned while being on those music video sets that still is with you today?
I'd say the first thing that pops in my head, I was at the Crush on You Little Kim's music video with Randy Kleiner, who was the choreographer of the video set. So we went, and they was doing a thing. I think at that time, so I probably was like 18, 19, I think. I would say the one thing I learned looking back now that I should have known then, looking back now, trusting yourself. Although I was a little shadow at that time, you know, in the room of a lot of, you know, music industry people at that time, it seemed like there was a lot of people still looking for approval. And I say that because looking at it now, I still see that.
Yeah.
I mean, in my time, I think I probably been one of those people many, many times. And now look, when you ask that question, that's the first thing that comes to my mind is like, wow, it's looking for approval because it always seems like we're seeking approval. And sometimes, and I know for me as a creative, sometimes it's like that. Like you want to say, see me, you know? And you're in a room with 10,000 filmmakers and you're hanging your sign up because you want yours to be seen. And you're not forgetting there's 10,000 others, right?
Yeah.
So I think that for me was that. It's trusting yourself more.
For sure.
Yeah, trusting yourself more.
Yeah. Right in line with production and
Writing line
and being on set. I want to talk about Nanticoke a little bit.
Yes.
There were reports, and you had put out some messages that even in June of 2023, you guys were filming.
Yes.
So I'm guessing you guys have wrapped production on that?
I was actually just with two of the producers this past Saturday at a horror fan show with one of our stars. He was doing a tour over there with the Horror Fest.
Was that in Allentown?
That was in Allentown.
Nice.
Yes. We are actually in the process. We're in post-production, so we're going to do some reshoots probably in April.
Nice.
And then we're going to cut it up and get ready for release. So, that project is going to be really great. It's a horror. It's based out in the town of Nanticoke in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
So it's history there. And one of our executive producers on that project, Karen Meta, she's from that town and from that area. So the community was all involved. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I can't give out too much for that, but I'm really looking forward to that project.
Tell me without giving anything away, tell me a little bit about the collaborative nature of that project. Having producers, having executive producers, finding funding, working with a cinematographer. Tell me, less about the story, but more about the collaborative effort, because that's one thing that really attracts me to the world of film.
Oh yeah,
and working in it myself is this team effort to get things done.
So it was interesting because on this project, I produced, and I've been on a couple of projects as a producer and produced my own content. In this project, when I came on, originally, they asked me to come on as a production manager. And when I said, yeah, absolutely. And then, after putting some things together, they was like, oh no, we need you as a producer. So I came on as a producer, and what that process was, it was a team, Same World Productions, and it was a team of about 4 executive producers with John, Karen, and Alexa, and Rick, the director. And that's when we started that process. And what we did was, so this was the process. So you're talking about, I was in Allentown, 2 producers was in Nanaco, 1 producer was in Virginia, and 1 was in Maine. And eventually John came up to Nanaco, and then, we all met up when it's time for production. But that's when it started. And it was really just looking at the script, looking at what we need as far as the talent. We all collectively reviewed a casting director together, and to hire the casting director for that. And she pretty much put together, the notices and kind of screened the talent for us while we looked at videos and kind of checked out who we wanted. And the process is seamlessly, I wouldn't say seamlessly, I would say the process can be tedious because I'm a big pre-production person. So we was having meetings on that feature probably like for a good 4 or 5 months, like at least 2 a week.
Wow.
Almost that.
Yeah.
At least. And that was from just having conversations on the executive side as, what we need paperwork wise. They had the funding already. So they already came with a level of budget. What would give for our best budget? Are we booking hotels? Doing all the logistical stuff, right?
Yeah.
Are we booking local talent? One of the things, a lot of things come into play is when we say local talent to us, we're probably thinking Lehigh Valley, right? Sometimes, most actors, and they would know that if you put local hire, they can be in New York, Connecticut, somewhere else, and you put local hire, that's up to them to
determine
to get to set, right?
Yeah.
In that sense, but we was fortunate enough to where we was able to put our locals hires in hotels at the Woodlands, and that I think that added to the enjoyment for a lot of our actors on set.
That's incredible.
To not having to deal with that stressor of getting to set,
yeah,
and where they're going to stay or having to travel back and forth, and that gave us a nice level of talent on this project, on the Nanaco project. And it also, during that time too, you're scouting locations, right? You're looking at craft services, you're looking at food. That time as the producer, I'm doing all my paperwork. So I'm getting all the deal memos together. I'm getting all the electronic payment information together. I'm getting the W-9s together, the I-9s, whatever, I'm getting them together. So I'm getting all those initial paperwork for Same Work Could Have legally. And that way we know who we are. I'm getting dietary needs, make sure we're safe on set. As somebody, I'm safe, they call it safe, surf safe something, but it's a COVID regulation that you have in the film world to where you just get in, just make sure you're COVID compliant.
Yeah.
So these are the things you're doing in pre-production. You're just checking for those type of things, and make sure who has the insurance, who's carrying this, does the director has enough equipment, does the budget allow for 3 cameras, or does the budget allow for 2 cameramen?
Sure.
So you're determining all those lines, right? All the lines. And that's where you're making your final decisions and cuts before you go into production. Yeah. Now, you can get into production, and as we all know, you can plan. And day one, nothing go as it seems.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you keep going, and as long as one thing I always say is that it's better to plan than to not plan at all.
Absolutely.
I find it much more productive on an indie set, and every indie set I worked on, when there's a plan, when there's a storyboard, when there's a shot list.
Yeah.
Things are structured and it's scanned out. People understand what they're doing. The communication is there. You have less people standing around and more people being productive.
Absolutely. Well, and on smaller sets too, when funds are tight, I mean, if you don't have a plan, it's easy to waste money.
That's right.
And every hour that you have talent there, and every day you got them there, that's money. And if you don't have your shot list in order, if you're spending hours getting your shots, like it already takes a long time when you know the shots that you want to getting the camera and lighting and everything rigged up to shoot. If you don't have that, it can be a huge deal breaker.
Yep.
But yeah, that hotels, it makes me so happy to hear that. I know that's not something that's afforded on many independent productions, but yeah, the quality difference in the performances you can get when the actors are able to immerse themselves further into the character without stress about travel, where they're going to go, needing to get up hours early to drive back to set the next day. Oh, it makes me so happy to hear that.
Yeah. Trust me, that was a good deal.
Yeah.
It's a good deal.
For sure.
Definitely a good deal.
When it comes to yourself, you've worked in the short film, you've worked in the feature film, you've done documentary. Focusing on short film versus feature length, what do you think the role in the film world for both of those kind of is? Like, just from your perspective, you don't need to speak for everyone at large, but like short film versus feature film, when you're deciding, do I want to expand this further? Do I want to keep it shorter? Like, what does that look like for you?
That's funny that you say that because it's I was going back and forth with this probably a year or two ago, whether or not I wanted to do features as a producer, because shorts, although a lot of people, don't say you make money from shorts, and you either or, you can and cannot, whatever. Believe it or not, shorts I think is much harder to execute than a feature is. It's really even scripting. Because in a feature, I'm writing two features now. I have one feature, Wild Love Again, that it's shot. It's already on script coverage. Already passed through my script coverage person, doing my edits. Got a studio I'm ready to collaborate with. So I'm going to be crowdfunding for that soon. Hopefully get something off the ground by the end of the year for that one. And I'm working on Broski film, which is going to be a feature. Yeah. And I got some other outlines. So just some in the pipeline. But I was just, it's to get a beginning, middle, and end and make it make sense and make it so relatable. Sometimes that's hard to do, And there's a difference between, I think, when you say a script is good, because you get that a lot. I got that a lot. Oh, your script is good. And so as a writer, you're like, oh yeah, they ain't like something. They ain't like something. Yeah. But then you get that, that feeling when you get, oh my God, this is such a great script. You get that feeling. So sometimes you can execute that better in a short than a feature. Absolutely. But I think it just depends on the writing style. But I see more, there's always going to be, features is where it's at. But more creatives are going into shorts. I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that submergence again, of shorts more shorts are being produced. Yeah. And there's more streaming platforms that are opening up to shorts. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's possibilities. Yeah. And believe it or not, in today's age, people's attention spans, a lot of people are not sitting in movie theaters for 2.5, 3 hour movies no more. Not too much. They'd rather do that at home. Which I find is funny and ironic because so many of the films coming out these days, 2 hours plus is becoming the norm. Yeah. Like, even through 2006, 2007, we were seeing the average runtime be hour 35 to an hour 55. And now I think it's something like 2 hours and 4 minutes. It's going up, and it's going up fast. And people's attention spans are going in the complete opposite direction. But a lot of times you see that, and that's a lot has to do with production value, right? So it's big productions behind them. And you think a normal running time is between 90 and 120 minutes, right? That scale. So most people will try to get that between 90 pages and 120 pages, right? Yep. But if you go over or under, okay, it's whatever your story you want it to be. Yeah. But again, you risk the audience. Yeah. Right? So last 2.5 movie, I think we went to, I won't say it out loud, but I wasn't a big fan. And the only reason I was a big fan because I was a big fan of the franchise.
Understandable.
And this adaptation of it, I was just like, no.
Yeah.
It was that Batman, that last Batman that came out. And then that's the one I was just like, and I'm a Batman fan. I was just like, oh, but I was like, okay. But because that's just my opinion of people who loved it. You know? But to me, I was just like, oh, just don't give me anything.
Yeah.
Totally understand it.
When it comes to this discussion of shorts and features, something that comes up for a lot of people is that writing process.
Yeah.
And this idea of structure, story, and tone, and the difference between, something like the Blake Snyder beat sheet being fully applicable to something like a 90 to 120 minutes. But when it comes to, 25 minutes or less, or if you go by Oscar qualifications, 45 minutes or less for a short, it's much harder to fit in a full traditional story in that time. So when you were working on something like Lonely Girl, right? Tell me about how you were able to think about and how you may have classified that arc yourself going into it.
So Lonely Girl, actually, at the end, I cut down, believe it or not. So, and again, for me, I think, and I think you hit it right on the nail there. It depends on the writing process, right? Because before I started crafting the script, I already was visualizing the story, the layout. I was already going around town looking at different, like if I was driving home or driving to the store, and I'll see a part in the park, and I'd be like, oh, that's where we're going to shoot. And this idea would come into the mind for this part of the story. And then I would kind of do a visual storyboard in my head first, so that way I'm seeing what is happening with this character. Why am I making this character do that? Is that about me? Like I'm having these conflicts with my own internal self during my own writing process. Yeah. To where by the time I start to script, then I kind of understand my problem, my PCR, right? What is it? I think it's problem, conflict resolution. So I boom, boom, boom. I got it. Boom. Got my outline down and I can start typing.
Awesome.
So for me, it's visual. It's visual before writing.
Understandable. I am very much so the same way.
It's visual. Like any like right now, like the stories I'm scripting now, the projects, and I have two outside of these projects I'm writing. I have two that I'm just pre-signed on last week.
Okay.
So there's stuff in the works as even after these, but I have to start with the visual. I have to sit there and say like, well, what I want the story to be about. What's the character? Who's the character? And then sometimes that's the beauty about daydreaming for me. It's because I let my mind wander. Yeah. And then I could sit there and be like, oh, and then kind of have that, oh yeah. And you get so excited. And then at the sense you realize, oh wow, I'm really creating a fictional story here, in your mind and whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what it is. Then I start scripting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I start scripting.
Very cool. So you had mentioned Broski there, which is funny because that's actually how we met. Yeah. Was you were working on some fundraising material for Broski, and you reached out to the studio. We got that set up. I got to meet Steve as well. Yeah. And that was a joy. But I want to hear more about Broski. Is that now still in the writing process, or is that in the pre-production process? Where are you at?
We're
now?
Still in development as far as scripting goes. We're closed down pretty much towards the film, meaning like we got the foundation and just enjoying the development process with that. It's going to be a project to where locally we're going to make a community. We're really going to dive deep into the community and really touch his roots, because this is what Mr. Broski is from here, and the sense of telling this story from his words, because Steve and I are writing it together. Yeah. So, and that's one of the things to me that makes it more authentic. It's him doing it alongside of me, right? And we're crafting it out to make that story, what it is, and having a mixture of fiction and nonfiction, and create that balance of his based on his true life, and kind of go from there. I'm excited for that project. I'm excited, like even the stuff that we've been writing, the scenes and stuff. I sit there and be like, damn. I'm like, you kind of got to see your evolution in yourself, and you're still like, oh my God, did I write that? Okay, something's happening here. So when it is ready to be presented to the world, we're going to shoot everything in Lehigh Valley. So
that's awesome.
We're keeping it local in that sense, and I'm hoping we was originally supposed to start the crowdfunding in February. But I'm the type of person, let's finish. I want to make sure draft 1 is finished.
Absolutely.
That's how I am.
Yep.
Let's get through that draft 1.
Yeah.
Then we can start crowdfunding. Then we can start, because then things is going to start moving.
For sure.
Things are going to start moving. So that's where we at. So we're hoping to get it off the ground in the next couple of weeks. The video that we did here, we're using, and that was some great footage. He did a stage play a couple of years ago. So we're adding some of that footage onto that footage for that crowdfunding video. Yeah. So that's what we're waiting for as well, too. So yeah. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll get that done, and you'll see us in the pavements or through your social medias.
Yeah.
Asking for a donation. But the good thing about this too is that I'm looking at doing product and placements locally, as well as any type of local businesses. We're going to be looking for sponsors and things of that nature as well too. So
that's awesome.
Once the crowdfunding comes out, all that's going to be pitched at and kind of all grouped together.
Yeah, that's awesome. Bringing it back to story.
Yeah.
What about the story of Steve Brodsky draws you to wanting to make a feature about it?
I would say, I do adore Steve's music. I met Steve working on his last record, the Still album, through the Westwire recording studio in Allentown. I came on that project as an A&R through that studio, just helping him do a couple of shows and promotion. And as a singer-songwriter, I kind of got his message as a lyricist. So that's where connected me, because to me, I love all different types of genres of music. Like believe it or not, my type genres of music is R&B, EDM, country, and sing and kind of acoustic music, instrumental. So I just listen to a lot of different music. And when I was doing WDIY, when I was on radio, he's a big local artist. So he always was mentioned on WDIY, and I was playing his music. So I was familiar with his catalog. And when him and I started doing projects, we actually did a video project, In Your Arms, prior to that. So Steve and I had a working relationships prior. And when he came to me wanting to do this story, the first thing I said to him is like, what part of your story you want to tell? He said all of it. I said, with the emphasis on musicianship, okay, let's do it. And for me, what caught the most part of it was the fact that he wanted to go and talk about the areas of his life that impacted him. And I'm talking about the outside of the music. And I think sometimes we forget that we are real people sometimes. And real people have real feelings and real life situations. So that touched me more, because as a writer, I think I'm more of a dramatic narrative writer.
Absolutely.
So that's what the part that got me more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve is a huge pillar in terms of music here in the Lehigh Valley.
Absolutely.
And actually, in an interview with the Valley Ledger, you had mentioned that you came to the Lehigh Valley around 2013.
Yeah.
And for anyone that's interested, I'll let them read about what brought you here to the Valley in the first place.
That's a book in itself.
But what I really want to hear about is what drew you to stay here. It's been over 10 years now, and you're still here. Yeah. So what's drawing you to the Lehigh Valley? I mean, we are the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast, so I definitely want to hear this answer. But we love having you here. We want to have you continue to work in the Lehigh Valley. But what draws you to be here?
Believe it or not, my plan was 5 years, and then I wanted to go to Florida. I love the sun. I wanted to be in the sun. I was tired of winters. I didn't want to shovel. I was just going through all kinds of life situations, emotionally, mentally. But I think one of the things that really kept me here is that after a while, I kind of, it became home. So not the fact that it was just a sense of feeling comfortable. The fact that I felt like I was home. So a lot of times we go places, we grow up some places and we move, relocate or whatever, right? But sometimes you never feel like home again when you left your original home. So
Absolutely.
even though this is not far off from New York, but it still feels very home-like to me now. And I think one of the other things that keep me here right now moving forward is just the sense that this is a pillar. This is going to be a metropolis of creative arts. People, wait and see. I know you guys see it. I know you guys see it. I know all the creatives that will listen to this, they see it. Before you used to have to go to Philly and New York, we're going to be that middle place.
Absolutely.
We are. And it's growing to that. And I seen that even coming out here originally and getting more involved in the arts. And as the time coming, the different people I'm meeting and the different creators, I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize how much was out here until you start uncovering a couple of things. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Okay, so they do have a thriving arts. And I think that only makes sense to people that wants to be in that environment, right?
Yeah.
So as an artist, that's what I think that's what keeps me here, you know, in the sense of to where I see like the expansion and the growth and the fact that it's became home to me now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. You've talked about driving around and feeling inspired while driving around. Even if it's not in a project currently, what is one place or one site that you have driven past here in the Lehigh Valley that just flooded you with inspiration?
I already know it. So in Allentown, not even flood with inspiration. In Allentown Canal Park, I would park, and usually, you know, when people go with the boats on the river right there, I would go down on foot towards the tip of the river there with my dog, and I would sit there. Right there, and you have the whole Canal River, right? You can see the bridge. I think, what bridge is that? That's like, is that the Hanover Bridge? I think that is. See the water flowing, you see people having fun depending on what time you go. So you see calmness, you see peacefulness, and you see just an expression of creativity and fun. If you think about it, water for me as a Cancer man always been an emotional impact for me. So I'm a water person anyway. So I love beaches, pools. I love that. So for me, being around water is very easy. So when anything I'm around water, I feel more at ease. And think about it. What's the most time you can see a lot of people, and at that very moment, the same moment like you're having, they're at peace. When you think about it, right? Like at the moment, you're not thinking about whatever stress you got in the world or whatever. You're in that moment, right? And you're enjoying that moment. And that expression in itself is very picturesque. So
that's amazing.
That's one of the things I do. Yeah.
Also, having been here for a while, you've talked about hard calling, but I also want to talk a little bit about networking. Oh, yes. Right?
Yes.
I want to talk about the importance of networking, but also who some of the people that you've met along the way are that you are super excited to continue working with.
Oh, a lot. And believe it or not, some of them I'm still waiting to get the call back from them. You know, like, call me, I'm over here, I'm free. But it's just great to see people continue to do it. And you said something earlier in the interview that stayed with me. A lot of people, you know, don't stick with things or don't do things. And I think it's more in the sense of, or when you mentioned since people have 9 to 5s, we all got like 7 different, 10 different, 20 different jobs.
Yeah.
But your passion for the arts always comes.
Absolutely.
Right? So Lehigh Valley Film Crew was the first film crew out here I started with when I came out to the Lehigh Valley and I connected with. And that was Trisha Thomas and Louise. And Trisha and I started doing projects with them. And that's what got me exposed into the film industry out here. And through them, I met JB, I met Moses, I met Jerry Rowe, who's been my editor on a couple of my projects already. I met Sarah V, who's ASR Media, who done worked a couple of projects with me already. I worked on some of hers. I met Cuba. God, it's a list of different creatives out here. Beth, like there's a lot of people to where even if I don't work, might have worked a project too on them, to where we still see each other on Facebook. We're still supporting each other. We're still going to some of the same awards or being nominated in the same categories, believe it or not, locally. So I think to me, networking is extremely important in a sense of promoting yourself and getting out there and getting in front of everybody. But it's also important to understand when you network, you're networking not just for yourself, but you're networking to see others succeed as well too.
For sure.
So I think one of the things with me, I always been a firm believer in you succeed better with others. So when I see other people still working in creative arts and still doing it out here, I remember my first project, I was so green coming out here, and I remember my first project, I'm saying, I'm going to learn everything that I need to learn in order for me to do what I need to do. So look at where I'm at now. And I still don't feel like I get people have to tell me, like, Mike, you do so much that you don't realize that, you're like a good, and I'm like, no, because I'm not ego-based. I'm really not ego-based at all. So for me, it's one of those things I look at it like, hey, I based it on my last project. It's the last project that was out, right? But yeah, I think networking is extremely important, but I also think maintaining the relationship, that's even better.
Yeah.
So networking is one of those things to where we can go to an event, we can network, we can schmooze, you can get 10 different business cards. Mm-hmm. Managing the relationship is how many of those business cards you call back to develop a partnership with.
Yep.
That's managing the relationship.
Definitely.
So if I'm going to a networking event or I'm going somewhere and I know there's a networking opportunity there, and if I kind of have an idea who's going to be there, I'm saying hi to everybody.
Yeah.
But and most times you're thinking, oh, I want to meet somebody that's an editor, or I want to meet a freelance, or I want to meet somebody that's a cinematographer because I might need a videographer. You know, so you're networking these things, but then what's the follow-up? That's where the bridge falls off for some people when they network. It's the follow-up. And a lot of people are good at it. Some people need help in it. Some people just like, if it happens, it happens, right? And then in creative arts, it's like the hard call.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you got to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, something that is like networking, right? Social media.
Yeah.
All of your social presence has October 14th entertainment tied to it.
Yes.
Tell me about what October 14th means to you.
So that was the month and a year my first poem or professional publishing went live. So I put it Oct 14. And that's from development to all that to where putting it out professionally with a barcode on it.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I figured that has a bigger significance to me than anything else.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, as we're kind of starting to wind down the interview, what's coming up next for you, and where can people find your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, right now I am in development, so I work for Oct 14 projects. I have Wild Love Again. I'm hoping that should be the next project going into production. The Brodsky project we're developing. I have 2 other projects to where it's like I said, it's very early stage development, so that's kind of going to be coming together shortly. Every year, this is my second year running, I have my Arts and Care event that's coming up in August 30th and 31st, and that's going to be at the Ice House in Bethlehem. So I am actually recruiting my talent presenters now, so I should start promoting that event probably like about April. I'm thinking about in the March, April, start promoting that event. And that's about it. I just finished working on as a producer, as a student film for a couple of student cinematographers in Muhlenberg College up there. So that was really cool, working with them. They presented with me, and there was great collaborators, great bunch of creatives that came through with that project. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. That's Peephole, Lonely Girl and Familiar Faces on the Red Coral Universe, which I'm happy that I got a contract with them and to put some more projects on there. So I'm very thrilled about that. So I think that's about it. And you can find me on my website is OCT14entertainment.com. My social medias, you could go to OC14entertainment.com, or if you're brave enough, you can look me up, Michael Judkins, and say hi.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show today.
Guys. Thank you, guys. It was great. You had some really great, interesting questions. And I could tell you did your homework. So I was even sitting up here like, oh, okay.
I appreciate it. We love the arts community. We love the people, and we want to do them justice.
Perfect. That was wonderful. Thank you, guys. And thank you so much for having me on the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast.
Before we end this episode, Michael wanted me to share about the fundraiser going on for the Steve Brodsky biopic film. Steve Brodsky, living in Allentown, will delve into the life of a young man growing up in the inner city of Allentown, Pennsylvania during the late 60s. With a logline that promises a journey encompassing happiness, personal conflicts, the allure of substance, and ultimately finding salvation, the biopic will provide a deep insight into Brodsky's transformative experiences. Written collaboratively by Michael B. Judkins and Steve Brodsky during the development stage, the film is poised to become a significant milestone in the singer-songwriter's remarkable career. By sharing his story with the world, the aim is to inspire and uplift audiences while showcasing the vibrant city of Allentown. Join in the fundraising efforts to bring Steve Brodsky, living in Allentown, to life and be a part of the larger narrative. Donations of any size are greatly appreciated and can be made directly through the film's official crowdfunding campaign page. For more information about the film and to contribute to the fundraiser, check out their Indiegogo page. The link will be added in the description. Our opportunity for the week is for the second annual Arts and Care event going on August 30th and 31st at the Charlie A. Brown Ice House, located at 56 River Street, Bethlehem, PA 18018. This event is being put on by Michael B. Judkins. Art and Care's core mission is to create a place of creative expression, education, and community. The purpose and mission of this event are to merge the worlds of creative arts and mental health and self-care through education, information, and accessibility. There will be a jazz performance on day 1 from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., and the main event will go on day 2, August 31st, from 12 to 4. More information will be released as we get closer to the day of the event. For more information, check out October 14th Entertainment on social media, or contact them at 374-733-3396. You can also email them at october14thentertainment@gmail.com.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast. Don't forget to like the podcast, leave us a review, and follow us on both social media and streaming services at Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast.